What's up residents, Alistair here. Titanus Rodan. Said to be a flying atom bomb, this kaiju is one of the most iconic giant monsters in history and has been referenced in popular culture throughout the years. Rodan in the recent film Godzilla King of the Monsters has stayed relatively true to the original, though there have been some minor changes to make it more fitting with a realistic setting. And part of that requires the art team to look at avian dinosaurs and flying reptiles. The flying reptiles that Rodan takes the biggest influence from are pterosaurs, winged creatures that can grow up to the size of a fighter jet and pick up a small theropod dinosaur, fly over the vast oceans and hunt for fish, and pick off insects that live in trees. But is Rodan the same classification as these flying reptiles? Or does it have more in common with modern-day birds? Let's answer the question, is Rodan a Pteranodon? Before I get into it, be sure to follow us on Twitter at DangervilleTeam, where we love to interact with you, the fans, posting news on upcoming videos and regular Q&As. Rodan is a fan favourite alongside the likes of Mothra, Anguirus, King Ghidorah, and of course, Gabara. But where Mothra is clearly a species of moth and Kamacuras a praying mantis, is Rodan able to be classified as a pterosaur? Rodan was originally named Radon, a contraction from the word Pteranodon, but does its design really stack up when compared to real-life creatures? Well, first let's take a look at the origin of the winged reptiles themselves. First discovered by naturalist Cosimo Alessandro Collini all the way back in 1784, which makes it one of the first prehistoric creatures to be uncovered, fueling paleontology as we know it today. Though at the time, researchers misinterpreted its wings as paddles, as they presumed it was a sea-going creature. It wasn't until 1801 that George Cuvier put forward the idea that the so-called flippers would be used for flight instead of swimming, though this theory would go unfortunately ignored even decades later, well into the 1830s. Eventually, paleontologists came around to the idea that it was indeed airborne and not an ocean-based creature, which paved the way for all future research based around these creatures, with the name pterosaur coming from the Greek word wing. Now there are many species of pterosaur, so for this video we'll compare Rodan to what's easily the most popular flying reptile, the Pteranodon longiceps. This creature lived in the late Cretaceous period and grew to have a 9-meter wingspan with a weight of anywhere as light as 25 kilograms to 93 kilograms. Pteranodon was the first pterosaur to be found outside of Europe, being found by Othniel Charles Marsh in 1870 at the Smoky Hill Chalk Formation at western Kansas. So let's compare this directly with Rodan, the fire demon. Rodan is 154 feet tall with a wingspan of a whopping 871 feet, weighing approximately 400,000 tons. Let's look at the fossils directly and compare how they might have evolved from the same species. Upon first inspection, the two creatures may look very different, but once we look closer, we can see they actually have a lot in common. You can see the orbit and the confluent nares, the area next to the eye socket, are in a strikingly similar location on the skull, and you'll notice both creatures are missing teeth. Jurassic Park would have you believe that these creatures had a perfect set of sharp teeth, but this is not the case. Imagine the Pteranodon's beak acting more like chopsticks, picking out fish from the water, or insects from hard-to-reach places in trees. Rodan has a similar, if not stumpier beak, though they're clearly intended for the same purpose, just on a much larger scale, which removes the need for a long mouth, perhaps for picking dinosaurs or large mammals from caves or underground caverns. Like Spinosaurus, the Pteranodon's nose was located far up the snout, so that it could leave its mouth in the water for extended periods of time, just waiting for its next unsuspecting prey to become its next meal. Both Rodan and the Pteranodon have a kind of crest that protrudes from the back of the skull, which most likely was used for steering, balance, and a way of displaying maturity during mating season. Some pterosaurs have a marvelous crest, colourful, large, and exotic, and the bigger the better. But Rodan has fairly stumpy crests. though he has two which resemble horns more than anything. This may very well be a way of displaying maturity amongst females or being used for combat. Now let's take a look at the torso and its wings, arguably the most important part when discussing flying reptiles like these. The hands of birds evolved to become the entire wing, but here both Pteranodon and Rodan have hands, which signifies they evolved from a common ancestor which once walked on all fours. These hands will be used for balance whilst grounded, which was demonstrated in the film Godzilla, King of the Monsters, but due to limitations in the suit, was not able to be replicated in the classic Toho films. They have extremely similar arms, with the humerus as well as the ulna and radius, the forearm, being followed by a metacarpals, where their hand is located. The flanges on Rodan seem more flexible due to there being more bones, though this could potentially just be for more support. So far the two have been very similar, but there are some differences. Rodan has legs closer to what we see on theropods. They bend backwards, which is unusual to see on a creature of this magnitude. The reason I say this is because Godzilla 2014 was designed under the pretense that his bones need to be thicker in order to prevent them from snapping under the pressure. But by designing Rodan this way, it only adds extra pressure to the knee of the creature. Though there is a reason for this. Rodan weighs 40,000 tons, which is around 60,000 tons lighter than the King of the Monsters himself. The reason for this is because Rodan, like pterosaurs, had hollow bones in their wings, which allowed them to take flight effortlessly. So an animal like Rodan has legs that are fully capable of supporting its own weight, as comparatively, Godzilla was far heavier and needed the extra support. This doesn't mean that I'm excusing it for being different from Pteranodon, as it's actually a game changer in deciding whether it's a member of the same family. Pteranodon, being a late Cretaceous-based creature, was obviously used to extreme climate and would be relatively used to the blistering heats that would usually engulf the regions in which it was located. Perhaps not to the extent Rodan is, however. No animal can survive being swallowed by molten lava, but in many of the features seen on Rodan, they are merely exaggerating certain aspects from what we see in nature to create these elemental beasts, with Rodan literally oozing lava from its skin. Pteranodon also likely had extremely primitive feathers to keep them warm in high altitudes, though they had no need for flight feathers as their wings were made of muscle, skin, and fiber. Rodan doesn't have any feathers, though he was originally going to have bird-like feathers that were removed during the pre-production process for reasons unknown, though this is most likely as it would have been too much of a departure from the origin of the creature. So you can see both creatures are strikingly similar, though they are different in many areas. What we can conclude from this is that Rodan is indeed a pterosaur, but not closely related to the Pteranodon, the genus that the name suggests Rodan comes from. Rodan is much more ancient than most species of pterosaur, but most likely sharply branched off at some point during the Jurassic period from a family that had theropod-like legs similar to the Saurides, which gave it time to evolve its own traits and adapt to environments it found to be comfortable. This video was a lot of fun to make. I love speculative science and bringing some kind of grounded reality to the Titans throughout the Godzilla series. If you liked it, be sure to hit the thumbs up button, and if you want to see more pseudoscience, then stomp the subscribe button and become a resident of Dangerville today. What kaiju would you like to see compared to real-life animals next? Godzilla? Mothra? Let us know. I've been your host Alistair, and I'm so thankful you came down to our lovely town of Dangerville today, and we'll see you in the next one.